What's going on, YouTube? My name is Mr. Crippled, and today I want to go ahead and bring you my top three gods that I feel need buffs. Now, before we get into the video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And in fact, to keep up with any of my future content, I will be leaving a link in my Discord and my Twitch in the description below. Now, these gods are kind of my first personal opinions. I think only really the top two need a lot of help, and the next two gods I'm going to be talking about only really need like some minor tweaks, like some in-game changes, or maybe like a quality of life change. But without further ado, before I get into the top three, I want to go ahead and do my honorable mention, and that's Hecate, or Hecate, or however you want to say her name. She's pretty good. I honestly think she's pretty solid. I think her biggest issue is that she does feel a little bit like Scylla back in Smite 1, where Scylla curse. It's really difficult for her to just kind of confirm the kills on her own without putting herself in extreme harm's way, in my opinion. But I don't think she really needs a lot of buffs. I do think the ult maybe needs a quicker casting time to make it more of a threat. But given the fact that it has so much utility, this change could be taken or leaving. I do also think that her ultimate needs a little bit of a tweak. I think she should be able to put the mythic ritual on anybody before them getting a god, before they recently kill a god. But at the end of the day, she is really solid, and I don't think she needs a lot of help. So on my number 3 spot, I wanted to go ahead and talk about Anubis. I don't think Anubis needs a lot of changes. I do think where he's at, he suffers a lot, but all he really needs is a good quality of life change and some good items that will help him. Like in Smite 1, he had Bancrofts, he had Typhons, and both those items gave him pen and lifesteal to help him with his sustain. And I just feel like if he had those items back in this game, he would be a lot more of a menace, especially with his new passive. I also do think that the ultimate needs to be a little bit wider. It is nice that in this game that the initial burst is there to kind of help with the damage, but hitting the rest is a little bit more difficult at higher levels of play, or even at lower levels of play. Especially since you're going to be basically a sitting duck, and I do feel like that he just deserves a little bit more off of that, or maybe even while he's channeling, he gets damage reduction, or he gets increased he gets increased physical and magical protections, or it could be that while he's in his ultimate, he gains the max stacks of the scales, giving him an amazing amount of lifesteal, the protections, and I just think that that would be really great for him. Up next, I want to talk about Zeus. Now, if you watch my tier list video, I do still think that Zeus is one of the worst gods in the game, but he doesn't really need that much for him to perform a lot better at higher levels of play. And I do feel like what he really needs is better clear and maybe a little bit more mobility. And I feel like how they can do that is making his 1 do true damage to the wave. That way, and making it to where he automatically just has all 6 bounces. That way it's easier for him to clear. I do think that per bounce should increase in damage only to minions. That way he doesn't have to waste 2 abilities to clear. Or in general, instead of the 2, just give him back his old shield throw from Smite 1. I think Zeus's biggest problem is that he can't clear safely because he doesn't have enough mobility to really make him safe. And I think another way they can help with his mobility is modifying his 2. Basically, what I thought would be a good idea for him is that for every overcharge stack that he has on somebody, the movement speed that he gains from his 2 increases. And I think that maybe increasing the 30 at max stacks, instead of 30%, it goes up to an additional 90%. Maybe not even 90%. I think that might be a little bit too much. Maybe 60% or 70%. But how fast he goes completely depends on how many stacks of overcharge he has. And the max amount of stacks he gets from the movement speed will be capped at 6. That way, if he has 3 charges on somebody and then he pops his 2, he gains an incredible amount of movement speed, helping him with his mobility. That way, it'll also make it scarier for people to dive him with his ultimate still up, so he can throw his ultimate on top of himself, pop his 2 when it strikes enough times, and it's going to be really difficult to hit him, which will inadvertently make his stun that much scarier. And up next, I do want to talk about Shock. Now, like I said, I don't think he's the worst god in the game, but I do think he does need some minor changes or basically a complete rework to help him be just a better god in general. He's been very lacking since Smite 1 and Smite 2, and he's never really been S tier at really any point since I've been playing the game. He's always been barely on the cusp of A or C or B tier. Like he's just not really worth it to play. And I do think it has something to do with the fact that he has no real CC outside of his ult, and he doesn't have he's just not tanky enough, and his damage doesn't translate well enough into late game. So what I think they could do is a minor rework to his 1, his 3, and his passive. I think the passive, what they could do with that is that he gains different buffs depending on stacks. Um, for example, I think that something can be really beneficial to him that can help with his damage is that he also gains strength and intelligence based on the number of stacks that he has. Since he's basically a ability based god, building it for auto attacks, since his auto don't even really hit all that hard, um, him being able to get max stacks in the middle of a team fight really isn't all that beneficial to him. But if he manages to go into a team fight with 5 stacks and then immediately cast an ability like his 1 and gains a bunch of strength and intelligence on top of the fact that it has a heal and reduces the cooldown and has no mana, I think that could be really threatening. And how they can implement this to make it even scarier is there's a separate mobile called Paragon where a character in the game who's kind of similar to Chalk throws his sword, and if you're directly hit by it, you're tethered to the weapon for a specific amount of time. And it only goes away until either the duration goes out or he uses another ability on top of the weapon, such as a teleport or his slow. And I think for Chalk, that'll be really cool for him to have. That way he can burn beads without having to worry about wasting the ult and burning beads that way, and he'll still have the threat of the ultimate on top of that. I also think to help with his sustain, I think they should add damage taken reduction on his 3. At least specifically in the altered version of his 3, where after he puts down his 1 and then he casts his 3, that way he has the slow and the damage mitigation to really make him scarier and give you more of a reason to use that stance. Because as it stands, you really only need to use the teleport, and there's not really a huge reason, at least in team fights, to use the gigantic rain dance. And I think that would be something that could help him out. I also think that possibly during his 2, maybe increase the amount of protections he gets per god hit. I mean, the amount he gets is nice, 13 per stack, stacking at 4 stacks, which is nice. But by the time he really gets to use it, it's not enough. And by the time the animation for his 2 ends, the hunter could have already pieced him down to half health, even building bruiser or even tanky. And since he's going to be the primary one frontlining, the protections he gets from this is kind of minor comparatively to other gods. So I think that I wouldn't mind him getting more protections per stack when he hits his 2. But that's basically all I have for my top 3 gods. If you like the video or you feel like there's other gods that you feel need some buffs or reworks, please let me know in the comment section below. I appreciate all y'all's time, and y'all take care.